Anxiety often convinces us that something is wrong with us. Burnout tells us we need to try harder. But what if both are signals, not failures? What if they are invitations to decode what your mind and nervous system have been trying to tell you all along? Welcome to the Divine Decode podcast, where we slow down, look beneath the surface, and explore the deeper meaning behind our inner experiences. Today, I'm joined by Nafisa Sekandari, who helps people understand anxiety and burnout by working with the mind, body, and nervous system instead of fighting against them. In this episode, we are decoding anxiety and burnout, what's really happening beneath the symptoms, and how you can begin to feel steady, clear, and in control again without forcing or pushing. So, Nafisa, welcome to the Divine Decode podcast. It's a pleasure to host you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Nafisa, before we get into frameworks or tools, I'm curious to know this. When you think back to your younger self, living with that constant overwhelm, what did anxiety feel like in your body and mind day to day?
For me, I didn't even realize that what I was dealing with was anxiety, but what I was dealing with was a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty, debilitating shyness. I was really afraid to speak up. I was afraid to speak. It affected my grades. It affected my opportunities in life. So for me, anxiety wasn't being nervous. It affected my mindset. There was a lot of irrational thoughts and beliefs that held me back when I knew that I was capable of doing more, but anxiety stood in the way because I had a lot of negative chatter in my head that was holding me back. So that's what anxiety felt like for me.
Yeah, there's something so important in that how anxiety isn't just a thought pattern, but it's an entire lived experience in the body. So yeah, and one thing I hear a lot is people saying I shouldn't feel it's anxious. My life looks fine. So what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding people have about anxiety and burnout?
I think when you realize that there's a lot of negative thinking that's creating excessive worrying, feeling restless, not feeling like you're able to uh, have control over your thoughts and your actions, that is something that needs to be addressed. But it also means that it's not something you should suffer needlessly about. It's not about pathologizing and stamping a label on you and saying you're anxious. It's about identifying the symptoms so that you can do something about it. There's so much we can do. And once you understand what it is and recognize the patterns, there's so much you can do to control it and manage it. But a lot of people feel so externally dependent, they're automatically looking for medication to control it, or I need a doctor to tell me how to fix this, or I need somebody outside of me to tell me what's going on. But what a lot of people are doing in that case is they're giving you superficial solutions. Like you need to breathe more, you need to journal, you need to exercise. So those are superficial solutions to anxious thoughts and behaviors. But you really need to understand what's causing this. What's at the root of these anxious thoughts and behaviors? Uh, for some people, it could be trauma. For me, for example, when I started feeling debilitatingly shy and became very, very anxious, it was related to trauma of immigrating to a new country, leaving my country behind in the middle of the night and not really knowing what to expect. And so the person that I was before I immigrated was very different. I was very confident. I was not shy. I was a leader. And then I came to this country and I became debilitatingly shy. I just felt different. We stood out. We didn't speak English correctly or whatever the issues were. That made me very, very shy. But at the same time, anxiety also runs in my family. And so understanding that I am predisposed for this, and then understanding what could be at the root of it, that's where I went and addressed the issues. And so it allowed me to have long-term control, and I never had to take medication for it, and I didn't have to go and be in long-term therapy because of it either.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because, anxiety, it is something that people need to understand firstly, and it's really important to understand the root cause of it as well, to be able to, fix it. So, yeah, that really reframes it. Anxiety isn't a personal weakness. It's information that's often being ignored or misunderstood. And so many people also believe that anxiety is something that happens in the mind, but I believe that's not true because yeah, it manifests itself in physical form as well. Some people feel it in their stomach, or other body parts. So yeah, that is something that also is being misunderstood about anxiety as well. But thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Nafisa. uh, and let's stay with that for a moment. When anxiety and burnout becomes chronic, what's usually happening beneath the surface in the nervous system and the way someone relates to their thoughts?
So a lot of people end up using anxiety or being driven by anxiety. Anxiety is the driving force behind their achievements. So a lot of people might have thoughts like, if I don't do this, I'm going to get fired, or just catastrophic thinking, thinking that if I don't do A, then something horrible is going to happen because of it. And so they push themselves really, really hard. And there's no balance as far as like uh, self care or managing their symptoms and not allowing stress to take over their lives. So obviously, when you're being controlled and driven by fear and by anxiety, you're going to have a high stress response and you're in fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight mode, you're not sleeping well, your digestion is affected, and you're not. So when we're running from a bear or a tiger, for example, our body's not prioritizing our immune system to make sure we're healthy, or it's not prioritizing our digestive system. It's not prioritizing sleep because we need to either run away to survive or we need to fight the animal. But when we're in that state 24/7, when we never calm down, that does wear down our body. And the reality is, stress can definitely kill us if it's not managed, and it can definitely lead to burnout and overwhelm and exhaustion and hormonal imbalance and heart issues and blood pressure issues. So there's a reason why we need to focus on managing our symptoms and making sure we're being balanced and regulating our nervous system, because you mentioned what is the effect on our nervous system. Our nervous system is on high alert when we're stressed and being driven by fear. It is constantly scanning the environment for safety. But if you notice animals, like in animals in the wild, if you notice a rabbit being chased by, I don't know, a bobcat, and it runs really fast, as fast as it can. Its heartbeats races, the digestion slows down, the immune system stops, everything. It's like all the blood goes into the extremities to make sure that this rabbit escapes the bobcat. But as soon as it's away and it's safe, it shakes itself off and then it resets. It goes back to being a rabbit and grazing and doing whatever because it knows that the threat is gone. The problem with modern life is that the stress never stops unless we do something about it. We might start off our day getting up really early with the alarm clock and it's go, go, go. And then go through traffic, go to work. Maybe our boss is yelling at us for being late. Maybe our coworkers are having issues and creating drama. Maybe our deadlines are not being met. And then we eat our lunch really fast at our table and we don't, as we're working, and we're not even focusing on digestion and really enjoying that meal. And then we continue to work, and then as soon as the 5 o'clock hits or whatever your quitting time is, you get back in your car, you're hitting traffic, you're going home, maybe you get in a fight with your partner, maybe your kids are driving you crazy, maybe your family is driving you crazy, and it just goes on and on like this all the time. So when we're operating like that 24/7, we're not able to reset, we're not able to shake off all that stress and anxiety like a rabbit would. And so we need to take active measures to reset our system and find time to calm our system down and find time to breathe and relax, because a lot of times when we're panicked or we're anxious, we're breathing from up here, we're breathing from our chest, we're having shallow breaths as opposed to deep breaths. And we need to, when we're slowing down and we're taking deep breaths, it's sending a signal to our system, to our brain, all is well, we're safe. And so that's the process of resetting our system. But unfortunately, it takes up to 2 hours for us to be in a safe environment for us to get back to safety. But like I said, if we're living very, very stressful lives, we never get back to safety. We never get back to resetting. And so we have to make sure we're making the time to create that moment of peace and safety and calm in order for our system to reset.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like what you just described is it's such an important thing because people nowadays don't realize because they need to understand what's exactly happening inside their body during anxiety, because so many people think that they don't have anxiety or they don't understand that it is what's happening to them is exactly anxiety or burnout. So I think, yeah, the way you explained it, it was much needed. And what stands out is how much of this is about safety and regulation, not productivity or mindset alone. So definitely. So, Dr. Nafisa, I have this question. How does this show up in everyday life for people, especially those who appear high functioning, responsible, and capable on the outside?
Perfect question. Yeah. I was one of those people that's very high functioning on the outside. I was achieving, I was getting things done. But at the same time, my mind was constantly going. It was causing a lot of stress. There was a lot of fear, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of catastrophic thinking where I felt like if I do one little thing wrong, the whole world is going to collapse and everybody's going to be mad at me, or I'm gonna get fired, or I'm not good enough. Just a lot of critical negative thinking in my mind, that was making me that was driving me basically. So I was like, "Okay, if I'm not good enough now, then I'm gonna have to try extra hard to become good enough." Or I'm going to fail, so I have to be the best. I have to perform at the 200% level because I was so afraid of not doing well. So on the one hand, that could be really good because society rewards those people. So people that have extremely clean homes, for example, they're doing it because they're afraid of whatever are people going to say. What is my family going to say? What are guests going to say when they come over? So I'm so worried about what they're going to say or how they're going to judge me that I have to be extra clean. I have to be extra organized. Excuse me. Um, I have to be extra organized. I have to be extra clean, as opposed to somebody that just likes a clean environment or just likes to have organization in their home. They're not stressed and worried about anything. They just prefer that. That gives them calm when they're doing it. They're not being fed by the fears and the negative thinking. So that's for an overachiever. They might look like they're have it all together, but maybe they spent 2 hours getting dressed in the morning because they were so afraid that every single outfit they put on wasn't good enough, and they were going to be embarrassed and mortified if somebody judged them. Or maybe, like, I had this one little girl that would cry every single morning because her hair just wasn't perfect. It had to be exactly perfect for her to go to school, because otherwise she's like, "People are gonna make fun of me. I don't like the people are going to" I don't know, a lot of just negative thinking that wasn't really rational. It's like, who cares? Nobody's thinking about your hair. But for her, that wasn't she couldn't understand that. She thought that everybody was going to look at her, and her hair had to be perfect in order for her to be accepted and for her to be, part of the group, I guess. So that's how it can show up. So it could be somebody that's a perfectionist. They have to show up early at work and give 500% at work and then do go above and beyond and be the last one to leave work. They're causing themselves a lot of stress with their thinking, when really everybody else is maybe performing at the average level and they're performing above average, but it's still not good enough. So that's how it can show up for people that are high achieving. And that's what can cause a lot of stress and overwhelm, which eventually leads to burnout and hormonal imbalance for women and sleep issues, heart issues, digestive issues. So all of those things can be impacted.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think that people are just so scared of, not being able to fit in with society, or about how other people perceive them, that they often this can even develop impulsive disorders, I think, like OCD, because much of what you just explained kind of it reminded me of OCD. So yeah, I think it's really important that people understand these things. And that disconnect between outer success and inner exhaustion is something that so many listeners will recognize themselves. So, what you just said, I think it resonated with a lot of our listeners as well. So, thank you for sharing that. Huh?
Well, I want to
You know,
say that OCD used to be an anxiety based disorder. I still believe it's still connected to anxiety and that it's an extreme form of anxiety where people become like there's different levels of anxiety and it's on on a scale, right? So some people might have low levels of anxiety that gets them to get something done, but when it becomes out of control or when it becomes OCD, then it shows up differently. I still think it's under the umbrella of anxiety and affects people differently. And so there's so many different little strands of anxiety that we can talk about, and OCD being one of them.
yeah, that would make a lot of sense, actually. So, moving on, Nafisa, when someone realizes that they're living in that constant state of pressure, where do you usually suggest they begin? Not to eliminate anxiety, but to stop being ruled by it.
I think it's a matter of understanding and then catching the thoughts. So when I'm calm, when my brain is balanced, when my brain chemicals are balanced, when I'm calm, when I'm taking care of my gut, when I'm taking care of my brain, then I'm less reactive. I'm more rational in my thinking. But when I'm stuck, when my brain chemicals are out of whack, when my gut health is not healthy, and it's not releasing the feel good chemicals, and I'm not taking time to rest and repair, I'm not eating well, then I'm going to be more reactive to my environment. I'm going to be more reactive to things coming at me. Because think about it, when you're in love or when you're happy or if you just won $1 million or whatever, you're walking down the street, you don't even notice any of the negative things. You're not even aware of all the horrible things that are happening outside of you. So stress is an internal experience. It's an interpretation you're giving to the event outside of you. So for somebody that's happy, they might see a lot of negativity, but they're not reacting to it in a negative way. It's not raising their cortisol levels. But when you're already depleted, when you haven't slept very well and you're not eating very well, you're not taking care of yourself, every little thing is going to make you be reactive to your external world. So it's a matter of finding time to calm your internal voice and then also listen to it by journaling. Every time you catch that negative thinking coming up, all the little chatter that you're not good enough, you're going to fail, the world is going to end, all of those things that are just just going off in your head, write all that down and then challenge it. Challenge it by saying, is that a true statement? Is that 100% true that that's gonna happen? Like, do I have certainty and guarantees that the world is going to end tomorrow, or that I'm going to get fired, or that I'm not good enough, or people don't like me? Do I have 100% guarantee about that? Most of the times, no. Is there some truth to that? 1 to 2% maybe, but if I'm looking out the window and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's gonna rain, it's gonna be a thunderstorm, it's going to be flooding," but it's a sunny sky and the chance of rain is at 0% or 1%, I'm not going to be reactive to that, right? But when it comes to our internal thoughts, even though there's only a 1% chance or a 2% chance, maybe even a 5% chance that something bad can happen, we forget that there's a 95% chance that it's not going to happen. And that's what I want us to train our brain to focus on. What's the chance that this is going to happen? What's the chance that I'm going to get fired because I'm late one day? Obviously, if you have a bunch of warnings and the boss says you come late one more time, you're going to get fired, that's a 100% chance that you're going to get fired. But um, for the most part, 95% of the time, the bad thing that we're worrying about is not going to happen. And we need to pay attention to that and focus on creating that calm mindset so that we're not so reactive to every little thing that's happening outside of us.
Wow, that was some great advice. Truly, I mean, it's also fascinating because like you just said, human beings, they just care so much about that 5%. They forget that they forget about the rest 95%. It's very important to remind yourself of that. But I love how grounded your advice is. It's not about fixing yourself, but it's about learning how to work with yourself, and I think that's really important. So, Nafisa, anxiety and burnout don't always disappear in a straight line. So, when setbacks happen, what helps people stay steady instead of feeling like they're failing all over again?
I think having a very supportive social connection is important, talking about what's going on, talking about the situation that's happening. So, even when the world of trauma, with trauma research, they found that when people go through a traumatic experience together, like a war or a weather, catastrophic weather, or something happening to everybody, or a car accident where everybody was in it together, when everybody starts talking about it, they feel better about it. They can heal and move on a lot faster, as opposed to people that hold on to it and feel too ashamed to talk about it and not have anybody to share the information with and carry the burden by themselves. So I would highly recommend starting a journal where, if you have no one to talk to, let's say everybody around you is not very supportive and you don't have anybody really that can listen to you, uh, start journaling, write it all down. Because when you write all this stuff down, all the negative things that are happening, let's say there's a bunch of negative things that are happening in your life right now and you have nowhere to turn to, just writing all that down diffuses the energy associated with those thoughts that you're having. And then eventually, um, you could feel more in control of it, and separate yourself from the thoughts, that you're not the thought. Sometimes your brain lies to you. Sometimes your brain makes something way more negative than it actually is. So creating some emotional distance can help you see the solution, and see the problem from a distance in a way that you can see the solution for it, as opposed to feeling like you have blinders on and all you see is the problem. And also getting in the habit of calming your system down as regularly as possible. It starts with lifestyle. It starts with making sure you're going to bed on time so that you're not so reactive and depleted the next day. It starts with making sure you start with a good breakfast that has enough protein, enough healthy carbs, enough healthy fats for your body and your brain, because you're also feeding the trillions of gut bacteria that are in your gut that are releasing the feel good chemicals. And it starts with just taking the time to breathe, taking deep breaths and making sure that you're not breathing shallow, and oxygenating your brain so that your brain is calmer and less reactive to everything happening outside of you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's all about, the permission that people need to give themselves to move gently instead of perfectly, because it feels like a big part of sustainable healing. And I think what really matters is taking the first step, no matter how small that is. So yeah. So for anyone listening who feels like they're stuck at the passenger seat of their own life right now, what's one question that they could ask themselves today to begin shifting back into trust and self leadership?
I like that you mentioned being in the passenger seat of their life. I have this analogy that with anxiety, we're always sitting in the back of the bus and allowing anxiety to drive the bus, and we're just bopping along. And we know that anxiety is a toddler and doesn't know how to drive. And it's taking us to all these scary places. And we're just like, we feel helpless because we think, okay, anxiety should be driving the bus, even though he doesn't have a license and he doesn't know how to drive. And we're just giving it permission. What we should be asking ourselves is, how do we get back in the driver's seat and kick anxiety out of that seat so we can drive the bus ourselves? And that starts with empowering ourselves and believing that we can regain control of our lives from anxiety. Anxiety can be a wonderful partner. It can be a wonderful servant. It will serve us if we need to get a deadline done, if we need to get something done or keep a house clean or whatever, do something. It'll work for us if we know how to make it work for us and train it. But without training, without understanding, without controlling it, it will ruin our lives. It will drive the bus and probably crash the bus. We need to figure out how to get in front of that bus, get back in the driver's seat and empower ourselves. But it starts with making sure that we're mentally and physically healthy by taking back control of our lifestyle and making sure that we're prioritizing our mental health, giving it the nutrients it needs, giving it the rest that it needs, and taking care of our body, giving it movement, giving it exercise, calming our system down. Those are the things that are going to empower us. And then we can just go up to the front of that bus and take control of that bus and drive it to where we want it to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was, you couldn't have said it in a better way. I think it all begins with, taking care of yourself, both emotionally, physically, mentally. So, yeah, I think that's really important to be able to, be the driver of your own life, like this said. Anxiety and burnout aren't signs that you're broken. They're messages inviting you to understand your inner world more deeply and respond with care instead of force. So, Nafisa, where can listeners find you and learn more about your work?
Well, you can go to drsekandari.com, DRSEKANDARI.com. I'm also at Dr. Nafisa Sekandari on Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Sekandari. So feel free to check out my podcast. It's called the Mental Health Break Podcast, and I talk about natural and holistic solutions to creating a calm mind and body.
Amazing. So, I'll have all the details on my show listing, and our listeners can feel free to reach out to you whenever and however they want. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on the Divine Decode podcast. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to sit with what your anxiety or exhaustion might be asking of you. There's wisdom there, even in the discomfort. Until next time, stay gentle with yourself and keep decoding what's within.